What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it does feel like the moves in this draft class may have been a bit of foreshadowing or pre-planning by Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji to set us up for a much better 2026 NFL draft class, even though I'm still fairly high on this class as well. But I say that because per OverTheCap, the New York Jets are projected to receive 3 additional compensatory picks in the following draft, which will be 2026. And when you look at some of the moves that were made, right, the trade ups in day 3, Malachi Moore, the DN from Florida, for example, the Jets really couldn't do a ton, right? And there's 2 pieces to this. One, you've seen teams like Buffalo that were able to trade up twice in front of us to take players that I think honestly would have been selections for us at some point. When you look at Deion Walker, for example, Kyle Williams that went to the Pats could have been an opportunity for us to move into that slot. Or even when you look at Arian Smith in the 4th, I think I full-heartedly believe Dante Thornton would have been the pick there because he has the better resume and brings the same skill set. And so we could have traded up to potentially negate any chance of not being able to secure a talent like that. But because there was minimal picks here, we have a handful of picks, which we'll talk about next year as well. You have to plan around what you can do best, right? And considering the late start to draft planning and stuff, while we hired Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji and then Rick Spielman, even much later on into the process, it's hard for me to imagine that the Jets got deep into day 3 draft picks and what that could look like for the Jets and who we would have wanted to target. And feels like options just kind of ran out early, right? But we'll have some additional resources here ideally. And nobody knows the true formula, right? I think over the years we've had enough opportunities being able to identify what may have led or canceled out certain opportunities to get these picks, such as how many years somebody signs on a contract, what's the guaranteed amount versus the total amount. I've even seen things like how much playing time somebody has received over the course of that new contract, accolades that they would have earned, etc., etc. So nobody really knows, but I think these websites have gotten pretty good at being able to narrow it down for the most part. Now, with that said, I feel like last year or maybe the year before I talked about maybe the same site projecting 4 picks to us, and I don't believe that actually occurred. So again, not an exact science here, but always worth talking about. And again, always welcome to have additional draft picks for the exact scenarios I mentioned this year, where I think if you could have gotten a Dante Thornton, if you could have still acquired a Malachi Moore and maybe even traded up further for a potential different, defensive tackle instead of taking Maui Goa at some point in the 5th, then you're talking about a much different draft class coming out of this one, where we're still receiving high grades. And I don't necessarily pay a ton of attention to that, but I just like seeing the context of how the draft evolved, how the Jets adapted to that. So tons of learning experiences and lessons to take away from this. But to get into these comp picks, right, the Jets are expected to receive 3, whereas the highest one being a 4th rounder, and then we're projected to get 2 7th round picks as well. And ironically, the pick that's returning the most value for us is from Hassan Reddick, who's going to go down as one of the most villainous members to ever wear a New York Jets uniform. But he signed a 1-year, $14 million contract to go to the Cardinals, and so that seems to offset any of the other things that have really been canceled out. And you guys will see a graphic here shortly that shows the breakdown that OverTheCap had. In terms of the 7th rounders, those are gained via Solomon Thomas and Tyler Conklin. Thomas signing a 2-year, $6 million deal, and then Conklin a 1-year, $3 million contract. Some of the trades that canceled each other out: Justin Fields and DJ Reed, Brandon Stevens and Javon Kinlaw. And that one honestly doesn't make a ton of sense to me. If anything, I would say Reddick and Stevens probably cancel each other out potentially. But then Andre Cisco and Morgan Moses, and that leads us to Reddick, Solomon, Tyler being the reasons why we have these additional picks here, which is great. And again, if for some reason Solomon Thomas maybe excels during this contract period in year one. Tyler Conklin goes crazy and maybe looks like a top 7 tight end as opposed to a fringe top 10 guy. Maybe that can bump up the value or such some way for us. But when you look at what we did again in this draft class, we didn't trade for any 2026 draft picks. Now we did a swap where we switched a 5th and a 6th, and I think that was for it might have been the Malachi Moore trade. Nonetheless, a pick swap is all that really happened there for us. But when you look at what we have in 2026, we have our first rounder, we have our second rounder, we have no 3, we have a 4th, a 5th, and then 3 6 rounders, of course, one being our own, and then one from the Broncos and the Bills each. So to be able to add 2 more 7th rounders and then to be able to double up and get a additional 4th where maybe you can package those, move up into the 3rd or sit pat and whatever that ends up looking like. To go from 7 picks to being able to talk about having potentially 10 picks is huge. A lot more maneuverability. Staff will be a lot more set in place, and I still expect Darren Muji to make some additional changes to that front office and or scouting staff. So you're talking about having a second year, being able to refine their evaluation process, go through what it looks like bringing in the coaching staff on those conversations, the front office and area scouts and such taking on a lot more of that leg work and really being able to pinpoint positions that they've strengthened up and such, right? I look at cornerback as one where now you don't really have to invest in that because it's going to be a tough route with cuts that you have coming up, right? Guys that we felt really good about last year that we've seen step up and have highlight moments like Stigger's not so much, but him being a draft pick, you have to throw him in there. But JBC having this moment, obviously Isaiah Oliver, who returns to the New York Jets, having a couple moments for himself. But now you add in the rookie, you add in Brandon Stevens. Linebacker may be a position you don't have to necessarily look at heavily again, although maybe you end up replacing Quincy Williams. But offensive line, not necessarily needing to have a heavy investment there. And then if you land Justin Fields, especially if this year doesn't end up being highly successful and you have something close to a top 15 pick, that can pay dividends in a situation where you want to trade down as well if you feel like you don't have to invest in that quarterback draft. So we'll see how things pan out, but let me know what you guys think. 10 picks in total if we do end up receiving those 3 additional picks, which is awesome. And I can't wait to see how things turn out for us with those. But let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.